Hello everyone, my name is Zenitsu and I'm back with another Digimon deck profile video. So today I'm going to be taking a look at BT16, and BT16 offers us lots of new and powerful tools in order to build and iterate on some new and existing decks. And today's deck I'm going to be taking a look at is going to be an updated version of Loogamon. So Loogamon really isn't doing anything too different than what he was doing all the way back in BT14. He's still a combo-based OTK deck that's playing around with SOC, X-Antibody, and Dark Animal synergies. The whole goal is to just have this one big combo turn, swinging multiple times with Security Attack Plus, so that way you could try to deal as much damage as you possibly can, while also swarming the field for even further aggression and trying to create that sticky board for offensive and defensive plays, while also having a couple of decent control tools in the mix. Then, because the deck is purple, it is wanting to try to fill up its trash and set itself up. The best way that it wants to do it, based on the natural in-engine cards, is through drawing and discarding. The biggest weakness of the deck is, well, it is an OTK-based deck, so there isn't actually a lot of interaction between you and your opponent most of the time. There is a little bit, but not that much compared to some other decks. Then, because it wants to hit the opponent's security as hard as it possibly can, it's also weak to hard removal, because if they could just out your main Digimon, then you kind of just fall apart, and at least the deck has a little bit of resilience with all the residual bodies, but if they're able to deal with those residual bodies as well, then you're still not much further ahead than when you were trying to aggress. So the deck is a little bit on the weaker side to some Ace Digimon as a result of Ace Digimon getting better, on top of defensive plans and defensive gameplay being a little bit better as of BT16 as well. Then the last big weakness is that it's still a stack-based combo deck, which just naturally comes with inconsistencies, trying to find all of the parts and pieces you need in order to go off. But in spite of all of its weaknesses, it's still a really powerful deck that can perform very well in the BT16 environment. So with all that said and done, let's just dive right into the deck profile and see what we're working with. Starting off with the Digitama, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Baumon as the only Digitama that the deck needs, because it's the only one that's actually synergizing with the deck. And then when it comes to the level 3s, I'm running a pretty slim but efficient level 3 lineup, because we really don't need anything else past what we see here. So I'm running 3 copies of the BT15 Loogamon, mostly just because it's a Loogamon name, plays with all of the traits that we're interacting with, but it's also in here with its when attacking ability to just help fill up our trash by allowing us to discard a card, and we also get to delete one of the opponent's Digimon with 3000 DP or less, so we could try to snipe a pesky floodgate that might be potentially trying to stop or block some of our power plays. Then if we have an SOC traded Tamer underneath, then we also get to draw a card, which just, again, helps with the deck's overall consistency. And then its inheritable ability is pretty decent too, at allowing the deck to try to be as memory efficient after the attack is over with our high level Digimon, as long as they have more than one memory, which is what a lot of the deck is trying to do on its higher level. Then we get to gain 1 memory, which is really nice. Then I'm also going to be playing 4 copies of the BT14 Loogamon, so this is the more important Loogamon compared to the BT15 one, because this one is going to allow us to basically set up our combo play, enabling us to put our AG underneath our Digimon, so that way we can have our Tamer underneath for various abilities, on top of the fact that we're also going to gain a memory, which is really helpful at making sure we could be memory efficient. Then, on top of that, its inheritable ability also is helping with that memory efficiency, allowing us to gain a memory when we're going to be playing Dark Animal or SOC traded cards. And the last rookie of the deck is going to be 3 copies of Loogamon. Loogamon might not seem like it's the greatest rookie in here, but it's actually really good, especially on our first turn, because we could choke them to 1, digivolving into this card, then going into our turn 2, move it out, do some digging, and set up our raising area for the actual desired rookie. Then, when it comes to the level 4s, I'm just going to be keeping it simple with 2 copies of the BT15 Loogamon. Again, it's another pretty decent card just because its inheritable ability is the same as the BT15 Loogamon, so that memory efficiency just helps, especially when we combo it with each other. Then it's when digivolving and when attacking abilities pretty decent in of itself by allowing us to discard a card from our hand and to give this Digimon a plus 2000 DP for the turn. And if a Tamer with SOC is in its inheritable source, then we get to draw a card, and the DP boost is actually going to be important in this format because we need to make sure that we could hit over specific walls. And then the main Loogamon and one of the best level 4 Digimon of the deck is going to be the BT14 version, because when we attack with this card, then we get to discard a card and draw a card, and if AG is in our Digivolution source, we also get to gain a memory, which just helps us get out of certain plays in a pinch. But the inheritable ability is arguably the more important ability, because just like the Loogamon from BT14, the Loogamon shares that same inheritable ability, again allowing us to be that much more memory efficient. Then I'm going to be running 3 copies of the BT15 Tyrannomon. So this is a really cheap level 4 for us to play, so that way we could try to get its on playability off to allow us to dig through our deck to make it that much more consistent, checking the top 4 for a Digimon with SOC in its traits and a Tamer with SOC in its traits as well, and add them into our hand, and then return to the rest of the bottom. And if we added cards to our hand, then we also get a trash a card from our hand, so that way we could try to set up our trash, while this card is also going to be a blocker. And again, in the early stages of the game, we want to try to swing with this card so it could die, go into our trash, and try to deal some extra damage against the opponent. Then we do have a couple more level 4s that we want to run. We could start customizing the level 4s based on what your personal preferences are, but I'm going to be running 1 copy of Black Gatomon Uber because it's still a fairly good card at trying to snipe problematic cards that might be in the opponent's trash that they might try to use. Then I'm also going to be running 2 copies of Black Gatomon from BT8 because this is just a really solid card because it has the rush ability, and the inheritable ability of retaliation isn't too bad either. And then when it comes to the level 5s, I'm going to be running 4 copies of BT16 Soul Loogamon. So you could kind of customize what amount of which Soul Loogamon you want to run. I'm just going to be prioritizing the new one just because Ace Digimon are going to be something we have to try to play around, and this versus the BT14 version plays around them a lot cleaner. So it has a nice when digivolving ability by allowing us to trash 2 cards from our hand, which is really good with our overall setup. We then get to delete one of the opponent's Digimon with 6000 DP or less, which is really good at trying to snipe anything level 4 and below. On top of the fact that if this effect didn't delete a Digimon, then we get to play a level 4 or lower SOC traded Digimon from our trash for free. So it's also allowing us to revive our Digimon to further our overall aggression. Then it also has a nice all turns ability where when one of your other SOC traded Digimon is deleted, this Digimon with an SOC traded Tamer underneath it can digivolve into a Fenrir Loogamon from our trash for free, allowing us to have some extra setups on trying to get into our main boss monster, which then its end of attack ability is pretty decent, allowing us, like the other one, to unsuspend. The condition is a little bit different where it's at the end of the attack once per turn. If the opponent has 1 or more memory, that's when we get to unsuspend this Digimon, versus us unsuspending when a Digimon is played, so we can time our unsuspends a little bit differently. Then I'm also going to be running 3 copies of Loogamon, so this is just a suicide target. We're just utilizing this card to try to remove problematic threats, on top of trying to draw some extra cards and get our trash as set up as we possibly can. Then I'm also going to be running 2 copies of Dinobemon. So this basically just took the place of Chimeramon being our primary DNA. What's making Dinobemon really good over Chimeramon is the fact that he's already playing inside of our colors, so it's a fairly easy card to use and even search for. So Dinobemon does have partition for purple and red, which is really good at creating a sticky body, on top of the raid ability to try to attack into the opponent's Digimon. So if we use Black Gautomon, we do have raid retaliation, which is really nice, on top of the fact that its when Digivolving ability is pretty decent, because if we DNA Digivolve, we could play a level 5 or lower card with free init traits from our trash for free, which is good because we are playing with Loogamon, and Loogamon is a free traded card, on top of another Dinobemon being a free traded card. Then one of your Digimon gains Rush and can attack a player, which is again pretty decent at helping with the overall aggression of the deck, with the inheritable ability also having partition for that extra stickiness. Then when it comes to the level 6s, I'm only going to be playing 4 copies of BT14 Fenry Loogamon, because this is the only card we realistically need. And he's really good at being our combo enabler, because when we Digivolve up into him, we get to play a level 4 or lower Digimon with Dark Animal or SOC in its traits from our trash for free, and if AG is underneath, we get to play 2 additional bodies for free, which is really nice at being able to swarm the board, which could help set up our other aggressive plays with Black Gautomon, or even our DNAs with our Dinobemon. Then he has a nice when attacking ability that triggers once per turn, where we get to delete one of the opponent's level 3 or lower Digimon, unsuspend this Digimon, and for each of our Digimon on our field, we get to increase the level that we can choose by 1. So the wider the field we have, the more powerful this removal ability becomes, on top of him having a very unique third ability, where during your turn, the end of turn condition is the opponent having 3 or more memory, which just extends the range of plays that we're able to make, because we have essentially more memory to work around with during our turn. And then the deck really doesn't need a level 7, but if you want to run one, then I would highly recommend Death Exmon, just because it's a very easy level 7 for this deck to use. But when it comes to the Tamers, I'm just keeping it simple and not changing a thing from the last time, which is 4 AGs and 4 Analog Youths. Analog Youth is a very cheap searcher that's helping fill up our trash and finding the cards that we want, while also being a really decent combo card to play around with for our Hell Loogamon. Then on top of that, AG is going to be the main SOC Tamer and one of the better cards for the deck, because at the start of our main phase, if the opponent has a Digimon on their field, we just passively gain a memory, which is pretty nice. He has the Mind Link with Dark Animals and SOCs, and while he's in the inheritables of our Dark Animals or SOC because of Mind Link, they're going to be gaining the Alliance and Blocker ability, which we're using mostly for the Alliance to try to deal some extra damage, because we get to increase the DP of our Digimon and security attack. Then when it comes to the options kind of really didn't change either. So I'm going to be running 4 copies of Wisdom Training and 2 copies of Purple Memory Boost, just as the key consistency cards. But if you wanted to run Mist Memory Boost over Purple Memory Boost, it really doesn't matter. And then the last option of the deck is kind of a tech card. You don't have to run a Delicate Plan if you don't want to, and it could just be whatever you feel like you want it to be. But because we are an OTK deck and we do have more access to red, it's just easier to use a Delicate Plan to try to turn off the opponent's security threats. And that's, for the most part, it for the deck. It hasn't really changed a whole lot, but the new tech and tools that we did get are very powerful and very meaningful, and it allows us to be able to build the deck in a couple of different ways, depending on the types of cards you're going to be prioritizing and want to play with. And speaking of other cards, we do have just a slew of different other cards to be able to allow us to customize the deck even further based on the expected meta that you're going to be playing up against, what cards and abilities you want to use, and the cards that you would have access to, which is pretty nice considering we have more tools in the toolbox for us to utilize. And the cool thing about the deck is it's still a pretty powerful deck even in future formats, because it even even get more support down the road, actually having some longevity.